illegal migration. Should we allow it or should we not allow it?
Say cross-border migration is changing their country's capital for the worse. Over the last decade, an influx of mostly American so-called digital nomads have moved here to work remotely and also enjoy a cheaper cost of living. Protesters say the newcomers have driven up rents beyond the reach of locals.
All right, so Mexicans are protesting that Americans are living in Mexico legally. You see the sign here, it says Mexico para los mexicanos. Mexico for Mexicans. Imagine if we were to say America for Americans.
You saw how he let that Potter roll off his tongue? I know you do your thing with the Spanish. Yeah, lead. I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm with you.
Guys, I lived in Mexico on and off for 5 or 6 years. I am fluent in Spanish. There's no one better to give you more of a behind the scenes look at what's really going on than me. So I'm going to let this play and we're going to watch these Mexicans protesting against Americans in their country. But then I've got a few things to say about it.
If they're going to live in a country, they have to contribute to that country. The first and simplest issue is legal migration.
Oh, we coming in hot. It seems like even over in Mexico, they understand the importance of legal migration. Yes, they do. Now we have the issue where in America, it's the complete polar opposite. Open the floodgates, let them all come in. Any country that is worth its salt knows one of the most damaging things that can destroy that country is illegal migration, because now you have other countries that are soaking and siphoning your resources. And a lot of times when things are being siphoned from you, you don't notice it right away. It's like a slow leak in a tire. It takes a little bit of time, but by the time you notice it, the damage has already been done. It's no longer your country. They're tired of you gaslighting them and telling them illegal immigration is not a problem.
I know Mexicans don't want to talk about legal migration. This is absolute insanity. Now, don't get me wrong, Mexicans saying that Americans should live in Mexico legally, that's true, that's a fact. But what about all of the Mexicans living in America illegally? Why is he not talking about that? Why is the government not talking about that?
Lee, you know why. You know exactly why the government is not talking about that. 2 words. Overton window.
Aren't they protesting in the streets, breaking glasses, destroying businesses about their countrymen invading our country? And what really makes this so moronic is that the Americans that are going over to Mexico are going there legally. They're going there with visas. And even though these Americans are there...
You hear the key word that Lead said? He said legally. That is the operative Sesame Street word of the day. Legally.
Illegally, these Mexicans are still protesting. But when Biden lets in millions and millions of Mexicans unchecked, undocumented, illegally, where are the protests in Mexico then? Mexicans are silent. This makes absolutely no sense.
Do as I say, not as I do.
They come here with visas or no visas, and still the change in purchasing power generates these problems of gentrification and displacement.
I'm here because gentrification is just one more step towards colonization, dispossession, and the exploitation of our resources.
Colonization?
Right now it's about the people, but it won't be long before they run out of oil, water, or lithium in other countries and come and take them from us.
Many Americans in Mexico are able to still receive high salaries in dollars from U.S. companies.
Colonization is a really strong word, but it's the sensationalism of the words being used to stoke the flames of fear. Colonization, when you use the word colonization, people think of the word slavery. We have to be careful with the words that's being used just for a sensationalizing purpose in your protest, because what will happen is people will start to look at these words as disingenuous and they will start to care less about your protest.
companies by working on laptops from their apartments.
The government is directing its public policies towards people with higher purchasing power, often illegally displacing local populations who have lived in these neighborhoods for 40, 50, and we have even documented cases of up to 60 years. In 5 years, rents have increased by 47%. This is violent for the local population.
Violent.
We are debating whether...
Again, with the sensationalizing of the words violent, colonizing, Nazi. That word is pretty exclusive in America right now. That word, that term, that descriptor, particularly towards ICE agents and those of that government on the right, particularly they use that word way too loosely and way too freely. You have not been around true Nazism. Matter of fact, you know who knows the true face of Nazism? Ask the Jews that survived World War II, that may be still living on this earth. Nazism is removing an entire race of people off the planet, an entire ethnicity, an entire culture, an entire way of life for people. That's Nazism. You don't know what true Nazi, and most of these people are LARPing. Most of these people that are getting aggro for this whole Nazi conversation that they're using in today's time, they're role playing. This is an RPG for them. Most of them have never been in a situation where times were really tough. Most of them live in middle class to upper class lives, social status, and incomes. And then what they do is they come in your neighborhood and play around in RPG as someone that can't stand Nazis. I'm not saying you should like Nazis. I'm just saying, if you know a pretender, call out a pretender.
we choose to eat.
Okay, guys, so what are these protesters saying? They're saying that a few thousand Americans go down there on tourist visas and they're working on their laptops. They're these digital nomads and they're being paid in dollars. The dollar is a much stronger currency than the peso, so they have a lot of purchasing power. Because these Americans have so much purchasing power, the prices surrounding these nomads raises up. And so now the Mexicans that live there can't afford various things.
But there's a reason why the US dollar is the universal currency. The Bretton Woods Agreement of 1944, the agreement was signed by 44 different nations that they would accept the American dollar as the universal currency, which means they would buy reserves of our money. If you want the peso to be the top dollar, there's a couple of things. You got to be the #1 original rude boy. You have to go up and make sure nobody wants to romp with you. Make sure everything Irish. You need to start with the corruption first. We have corruption in America, but it's nowhere to the level of what's in Mexico. Anytime the cartels is seen as its own government in your country, that's an issue. Don't confuse it. In America, we had the mafia, but the mafia was never seen as its own governmental de facto entity here. It was not easy to break them, but it happened. For you to be the #1 original rude boy and for you to have the peso at the top, you got to be able to step two. And unfortunately, you may not like it, but it is universally accepted that America was very instrumental in winning World War II. When you're the big dog, you get to call the shots. That's just how it works.
They can't afford rent or groceries or whatever these people are protesting. Let me give my opinion on this as, again, someone who lived there for years. Who is to blame for prices rising? Who is to blame for America's purchasing power being used in Mexico? I'm going to tell you very simply that these Mexicans are doing it to themselves. Let me explain something to you. Let me tell you some of the things that I...
Oh, they not gonna like that lead. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. Self-accountability. That is not the word of the day. That is not the Sesame Street word of the day. That word of the day was legally.
saw when I lived there. First of all, discrimination, all right? It is not legal, but it is legal. If you go and fill out a job application, you have to include something that you would never even begin to think as an American. Do you know what you have to include on the vast majority of job applications in Mexico? You have to include your photo. These HR departments want to know exactly what you look like. Is this a security measure? Are they trying to make sure the company is safe? No, they have all your information anyway. They want to know how you look. They want to know if you are attractive or if you're ugly. They want to know if you are a lighter.
See, in America, we have something known as Title VII. It is a federal law on the books that protects those of certain classes. What it also states is that an employer cannot reject an application based on your gender, based on your race, based on your age, based on your sexual orientation. Those are the top ones. There's other subcategories that also are covered under Title VII, but those are your main go-tos when there's violations of Title VII civil suits. Imagine you being in a system or a country where this is not a conversation. This is not an issue. They can absolutely discriminate just based on the photo of how you look.
Skinned Mexican or you are a darker skinned Mexican. That matters so much to them, and they want to see what your skin looks like before they hire you. Guys, I have seen so many things in the hiring process that would be absolutely illegal in the United States. I've seen help wanted signs that say the maximum age is 30 years old or 35 years old, and if you're 1 year older, don't even apply. I've seen help wanted signs that say beautiful women only. I've seen jobs that are looking for applicants, but they specify the maximum weight that a woman can weigh.
Uh-oh. Oh, imagine you not being able to get a job based on your weight. Yeah. In America, we would have a lot of people in the unemployment line. Can you imagine that? Imagine you being in a position where you're extremely qualified for the job. You cross all the T's and dot all the I's. Your job just laid you off. You go fill out an application. You would be perfect for this job. And you get to one checkbox. And that checkbox tells you if you are over this particular age, you can't get in. If the cutoff age is 49 and you're 50, no matter how qualified you are, too bad, so sad. I want people to please understand in different countries, especially in England, there is no First Amendment. There is no Second Amendment. In Canada, there is no Second Amendment at all whatsoever. This is why so many countries have their citizens attempt to come here legally or illegally because this is the best country on earth. This is the one place you could talk about your president without threatening him with harm, and you will not go to jail. Try that in France.
Or her maximum height. I've seen jobs that specify a woman's maximum shoe size. Some of the considerations that these jobs take into account is outrageous. Now, what's the point? The point is, it is so easy for Mexicans to say, hey, we are not going to rent to Americans. We don't want your money. We don't want your purchasing power. We are only going to rent to other Mexicans. We are going to support our people. We're going to support the community. They can...
Mexico understands that they want Mexico for Mexicans, But for some reason, Americans don't understand that they want America for Americans.
Do that, but they don't. These Mexicans are accepting American dollars and then blaming Americans. These Mexicans are choosing profit over other Mexicans.
We'll take your money, but it's your fault that you're making it better for us.
And then putting the blame on us. This is all backwards. We heard this woman here complaining about colonialism, that Americans are going down on tourist visas, and that could lead to a colonization of Mexico. That could lead to us taking their water and their oil and their lithium. But let me say this again so that it's very clear. We are going down there on tourist visas. We don't have the ability to stay down there for years and years and years unless that same Mexican government renews our visas over and over and over. Just so that we're clear, these Americans are not buying properties down there. We're renting. We don't own anything. We don't own the land. We don't own the property. We don't own the building. What type of colonizers go to a foreign land and just rent?
This is so absurd. This mindset, this thinking is so absurd. People heard the word colonization in one of their liberal arts classes, and they've ran with it ever since then. Colonization is apartheid. Colonization is slavery. This is not slavery. This is not apartheid. These Americans that are tech bros, more than likely, that's coming there, they're not telling you move into the street when they walk by. But you also must understand, when the resources increase, it's just a simple law of supply and demand. When there's a higher demand for something, the price goes up. When there's a lower demand, the price goes down. Right now, because the cost of living in Mexico is so cheap, what do you think is going to happen when that's no longer a factor and the cost of living is no longer cheap? Now you become the new utopian society.
I was living in Mexico, I rented various apartments. Let me tell you, you don't have any control. Renting doesn't give you any voting rights. You can be evicted at any time, and basically you can be evicted for anything. Let me just say this, I experienced it. These courts are corrupt. You can't trust a Mexican court for anything. And if a Mexican wants to kick you out, they can say that you broke the lease in a way that you didn't, and then go to court to get an eviction order. All the Mexican has to do is pay a lawyer and give a little bit extra to the lawyer. The lawyer's going to give a little bit extra to the judge, and boom, you have your eviction order staring you right in the face. You didn't even break the lease. But because of the corruption, now you're kicked out. How is that colonization? How are you colonizing anything if you're renting? This guy here in the mask wants to talk about how much money Americans are spending in Mexico. Let me give you a little insight that no one is going to talk.
I don't understand that logic. You're pissed off because there's an influx of money coming into your country. Because it's not just a cycle of your currency system. It is also the governance and the political corruption. These are not people that are even trying to run for office. These are people that are just trying to help improve your economy. Now, I don't know if this is a situation where people are there looking for tacit approval, but it's not coming. When people see a cheaper way to live, they will go there every time. It is not a mistake why a lot of wealthy people move to Texas and Florida. A house where I am in Illinois that will cost you $500,000 would easily cost you $200,000 in Atlanta, because success and wealth, sooner or later, they cross paths and follow one another. And when the wealth begins to move into a certain place, everything around it starts to increase in value.
Talk about when they review these videos. Are we spending as Americans a lot of money in Mexico? The answer is yes, but why? Let me tell you something that I experienced numerous times. You've heard of it. It's called the gringo tax. When I got down there,
The gringo tax is a very real thing. I have experienced this personally myself.
What did the reporter just mention? The reporter just talked about these remissions, these payments, the money that is being sent from America to Mexico by foreign nationals, by Mexican nationals. These Mexicans are here oftentimes illegally. They are working here. They are receiving dollars, and then they send.
What was the Sesame Street word of the day? Legally. What it bring it back to? Legally. That's where it counts. That's where it matters. I'm not against Mexican nationals coming here legally, making their money and sending it back to their country, to their relatives. Now, what I prefer that it stays here in America 100% because there's no benefit for Americans or America when they do this. It starts to stick in the craw of a lot of Americans when they see you come here illegally, take their resources, and then when they try to send you back, you start waving your country's flag in their face, basically as if to say, ha ha, Mexico is better than your country, when it is your people and your country fighting to come here. We understand things are tough in Mexico, but you gotta do it the right way, which is the legal way. But don't talk that ish after we've been helping you out for decades.
These dollars to their families to support them in their nation. We Americans get no benefit from that. Studies show that the amount of these remissions is some $63 billion a year. That's more than what Mexico collects in tourism. All of these Mexicans you see here are protesting a few thousand digital nomads living in Mexico City or these other cities when Mexico is receiving $63 billion a year. I mean, the question is, do you want the dollars or do you not? When the dollars are received by
Occam's razor, do you want it or do you not? We don't have to spend a long time going back and forth on this subject. Do you want the money or do you not? So you want to remain in a stage of chaos and corruption? Or do you want to move into a stage where that corruption becomes an afterthought? Or at the very least, corruption hides its face. In America, there's corruption, but it hides its face because it knows better. It knows if it sticks its face out in the open, the resources that you care about is going to be the last thing of concern for you.
certain Mexican families, these certain families have more to spend. What does that cause? Inflation. What does that cause? Rising prices in the housing market, rising prices in food, rising prices in gas. But in these situations, you don't have anybody to blame. You don't have a scapegoat. But now a few thousand Americans go down to Mexico with their laptops on a tourist visa, and now they're the problem. Who remembers when President Trump threatened to impose a 5% tax on these remissions?
Uh-oh. I remember, Lead. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I remember.
On these monies sent from America to Mexico. The whole Mexican country was up in arms. Even the president of Mexico itself, there's this lady, she threatened the United States. She said they were going to mobilize.
That's exactly what she said. And she said, we're going to tariff them back. Now, don't get me wrong. I understand. She has to represent and stand up for her people. She doesn't want to come from a position of what appears to be weakness. So I understand that she has to provide some pushback because if she sat there and said nothing, she would be seen as a joke and she would lose the respect of her own people who she's sworn to protect. So I get the nuance between this situation of inflation and representing and standing up for your people. But it is a fact. This absolutely happened. She said she was going to tariff back. The market went crazy. Everybody screamed recession. By the way, what happened to that recession that everyone was expecting to happen over the past 3 to 4 months now?
if Donald Trump made any type of forward movement on this 5% tax. Imagine Mexico threatening us. But that's how important these remissions are to Mexico. That's how important these dollars are. But dollars are so strong, what are they going to do?
See, so Lead is explaining outwardly they're projecting, and the Mexican government and Mexican officials and the Mexican citizens are projecting. I don't want to necessarily put words in their mouths, but they're projecting that this is an issue. But at the same time, they need the money and the resources to improve their country. How do you get it? Because apparently, what you've been doing isn't working.
They're going to cause some inflation. So you want the dollars because your economy is so poor, but when you get the dollars and the dollars start to bolster the economy and prices start to rise, now you're mad. It is so ironic that these Mexicans are protesting everywhere in the streets about the inflation when the Mexican government treats these American dollars basically as life support for so many millions of Mexican families. It seems to me that maybe Mexicans should stop protesting and start working on improving their economy, start to strengthen it. If the
Focus on the corruption, strengthen your economy, everything else will follow in due time. Now, it may be a little bit of a mudslide. It may come at a rapid pace. It may come at a turtle's pace, but it will happen eventually. But one of the things is you got to get rid of the corruption first. I'm not saying Mexico hasn't tried, because I know it's easier said than done, because the cartels are a very vicious, strong force. So I'm not completely lost in that situation of, well, it's not like we haven't tried. I know you have. But what I'm saying is, we in America are trying to help you with an out. And then you're displaying this false sense of pride as if you don't need the help or you don't want the help and you can do it completely on your own. If you could have done it on your own, you would have done it by now.
Mexican economy was strong, they wouldn't need our dollars. People can debate whether the American economy is strong or not, but is there a debate as to whether or not we need the Mexican peso? I lived in Mexico for years and spent actual dollars.
And there it is. There's the cherry on top of the cake. That's your exclamation point right there. I said that not too long ago. They need us more than we need them. The issue is a lot of these protesters are pretending as if they don't need us. They do. And I'm not saying we as Americans are here to just simply take over their country, but trade exists for a reason.
Physical dollars in Mexico thousands of times. I have lived in the United States for decades and I've never spent one Mexican peso here, not one.
Unless you live across the Texas border, then that may be a different story. There's pizzerias along the Texas border in different areas of Texas, even in Austin, that I know of, where you can actually use Mexican pesos to buy pizzas.
Our economy is strong and we don't need the Mexican peso to survive. These Mexican protesters would do well to focus on their economy, improve it so that they don't need our dollars. The news coming out about all these protests over Mexico, over us, over Americans being there. I can't believe how idiotic these stories are about these protests coming out of Mexico. But fine, what do you guys think? If Mexicans want us out of their country, should we want Mexicans out of our country? A lot of MAGA supporters are looking at Donald Trump a little skeptically. Trump has come out recently and intimating that, hey, maybe some of these illegals who are helping the farmers, maybe they should stay. Maybe some of these illegals that are helping the leisure industry, the hotel.
As far as I'm concerned, I think we should have it where America is for Americans and allow Mexico to be for Mexicans. I'm not against that issue. That's a flat concern. If you want to take the resources from one country and transition it to another country, you would be under your own false belief to believe that country would not have some say so over the ranking of those resources. Not directly, but definitely indirectly. I don't necessarily want to kick out Mexicans that have come here legally, but we definitely need to tamper down illegal immigration. Because as far as I'm concerned, the Black community, they don't see it right now, but they will take a huge hit over time in the political strata of how much weight they carry in voter percentage. Because remember, the way it works is when the consensus comes around, those people, illegal or not, especially in sanctuary cities, illegal or not, they get counted as a citizen in your respective community, which means that increases the per capita or the dollars that can inflow into your community. I know that may sound like a foreign concept. This is a hot button topic. I understand that. But man, this is one of those videos that I have been putting off for a long time to make. And most of you can probably see why.
Industry. Maybe they should receive some type of grace. Maybe they should be allowed to be here. At the same time that Trump is softening his stance, Mexicans are getting harder with theirs. They're protesting us. They're threatening us. They're
the irony. We get soft on the stance, they get tougher. In what world does that make sense? Oh, I apologize. In that world.
destroying the businesses that support Americans. So should Mexicans who are here illegally be allowed to stay, regardless if they work in the hotel industry or the leisure industry? If they're here illegally, should they be allowed to stay while these Mexicans are protesting us?
That's what bothers me. Everyone here is being referenced as a migrant now and not distinctly as an illegal immigrant. This is conflation without distinction. And this is why a lot of people are bothered by it. This is why in the 2024 election, Kamala Harris won Illinois, where I am, by less than 14 points. If I remember correctly, and I would have to check back, she only won Illinois by 8 points. On top of that, Illinois is a winner-take-all state. This is the reason why Illinois has been a deep blue state as far back as the mind can remember from a political standpoint. I personally believe when you open the door to illegal immigration, this is what will end up shifting the Overton window.
Us being there. Put your opinion in the comments below.
Guys, let me know what you think. Comment, like, share, subscribe. Get in the comment section. If you like it, let me know you like it. If you tell me, hey, this sucks, let me know in the comment section that this absolutely sucks. However you feel, let's get the conversation started, because one thing I do believe that it needs to be a conversation. I'll catch you guys in the next one.